Jacob, let's jump into this and actually talk about good football teams, which I feel like
Oh
I've
my
said.
gosh.
I feel like I've said that for the last year, 2 years since we started this podcast. So talk about some good football teams. Did you get a chance to watch conference championship weekend?
I did. I watched a little bit on my phone driving in a car, and then I finished at night watching the Rams 49ers game. But yeah, it was once again another weekend of great football, and I can't get the tweets out of my head of people saying it seems like watching these playoff games is like watching a different sport from what the Jaguars play in. But yeah, it was great football. Another great week, close games, and it makes you excited to see what will happen in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely excited, and I don't think if you looked back at the bracket, anybody would have wanted to see this matchup per se, just based on some of the other storylines that could have been there. However, that being said, I do think it's a cool opportunity for Cincinnati and LA as well. I mean, I will be biased. I am rooting for Cincinnati just because they've been a bottom dweller, just like us, for the better part of the last 2 decades, and they are now in position to kind of shed that monkey off of their back. So
Mhm.
we'll see what they're able to do. But 6 games over the last 2 weekends between the divisional round and the conference round, 5 of which ended in a field goal, a 3-point game. The only other one was the Bills Chiefs, which ended in overtime. So each of the last 6 games in the playoffs have been a one possession game. 4 of the 5 field goals were by the away team winning it. The Rams kicked the game winner to win it as the home team, and then the Chiefs beat the Bills in that overtime thriller on divisional weekend, which is pretty crazy. It's up there with some of the best moments in sports. Jacob, would you say this weekend or these past 2 weekends kind of solidify the NFL playoffs as just the best playoffs in sports?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think for a couple reasons. One, obviously because just how close the games are, but I think two because when I think of college football playoff, people love college football, but unfortunately, there's some big blowouts, and then the championship might contain similar teams year to year. The NBA is a longer process, so like while that can be exciting, some matchups might not be exciting, and you got to play like at least 4 games. They might get swept. I don't watch much hockey. I think you would have to talk more on that. Baseball's similar, where it can have great moments, but it's a series where like each game matters. But even if you lose those games, you can come back. Hopefully, the next game or two and make a comeback. The NFL playoffs, it's like one and done. Did you earn a bye? Did you earn home field advantage? Do you have what it takes to go to great lengths each and every week? Because now these teams are playing multiple times in overtime periods or close games. So they're playing these very stressful games one week and just following it up with another. That I think when you match how close the finishes are and then the fact that this game is there's no series involved, it currently just feels like the best playoff to me overall.
Yeah, I mean it's exciting, and the format is what it is. I don't think there could ever be a series type format in the NFL just with how physical the game is. Obviously game sevens in the MLB playoffs are great in the NHL. Like a game seven in any sport is going to be a great moment. But as
Yeah,
far as all the way through, I think there's obviously games in those
it's
other formats that can be duds.
it's more yeah, it's more relaxed. I mean, exactly. Like you're not going to ever be able to play a series in football, and it's not a shame that the other sports do have series, but it just makes where you're not as worried each and every game because there's tomorrow. In the NFL, there's no tomorrow, and there's plenty of teams, and they're all very closely um, competitive. So I totally thought like I on your picks that we did at the beginning of these playoffs, I did pick the Bengals to go to the Super Bowl. So I was pretty
I
proud that
wanted
they
to
did.
mention that. Yeah, I wanted to
But
mention that.
but I'll tell you what, I at work we had to pick them for these last two conference games and then the Super Bowl, and I picked the Chiefs, even though I originally picked the Bengals because now that we've seen some of these playoffs, to me seeing what the Chiefs did to the Bills, I'm like, wow, like if they did that to the number one defense, like why wouldn't they be able to do that then to the Bengals? So that just shows you that this isn't college football, that just because one team might do this against what we consider a stronger opponent, the Bengals still showed up and played against the Chiefs, and everyone was worried about this coin toss now. Everyone was worried about this
Mhm.
coin toss in the Bengals game. Like, here we go again. They win the coin toss. But this is why I didn't have a problem with the Bills game, losing the coin toss and saying they didn't get a chance because what did the Bengals do? But the defense came out and all 3 plays showed up. Like, it wasn't like one random pick. There was a pick that Eli Apple almost had, and then back-to-back plays, they pick
Mhm.
them off for so that's why I don't think there's huge problem with the overtime rules. Um, but it's just like I was surprised that the Chiefs didn't just roll through the Bengals like they did against the Bills because I considered the Bills to be a stronger defense overall.
Yeah, and I will say this about the playoff rules. Obviously, there's always going to be that debate of both teams should have the chance to touch the ball, which I fully support. But if you think about it in the Bengals situation, the Bengals, the team that plays defense first, they're incentivized to make a stop by then simply just having to kick a field goal. So it's a give and take kind of scenario where offensively you're saying, okay, we have a shot to go down and win this thing without them even trying to match us. But then defensively, you can say, we have a shot to make a stop to where now we only have to go 40 yards to kick a field goal rather than 70 yards and
Yeah.
score a touchdown, which can be a lot more difficult to do. I mean, there's a reason a field goal is only 3 points and a touchdown 7 points. So I do think it was kind of the football gods looking down on the football fans to not give us more ammunition to talk shit about the overtime rules, causing the Bengals to get that interception and then ultimately win the game. But we did see a completely different Chiefs team in the second half of that game. I mean,
Yeah.
the Chiefs scored a touchdown on their first 3 possessions. It was 21-3 at halftime, I think it was, right? 21-3 or 21-10.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it was
21-3.
21-3
Oh,
and
yeah.
you know, I think it was
It was
21-10 maybe.
21-3 at one point, but now that you say it, I feel like at halftime it could have been 21-10.
I think it was 21-10 because I think the Bengals, I think P. Ryan got a screen pass and ran one in right before halftime with about a minute left to make it 21-10. And, who's to say the momentum shifted? Some of our friends out there don't believe momentum exists, even though it's literally in physics books and momentum's a thing. But I will say the Bengals defense, that defensive coordinator out there earned his paycheck just from simply the second half performance because he took all the data from the first 3 drives that the Chiefs threw at him and said, okay, here's how we're going to make adjustments. And if you're a team going up against the Chiefs, you almost have to expect that they are going to score 20 plus points a game. It's just the fact that they scored 21 right off the bat that I think surprises a lot of people. But the fact that they scored 21 is no surprise to anyone. The Chiefs do that regularly week in and week out. But the Bengals came out and just completely changed the game with their defense. They blitzed 3. They had a spy. They didn't. Every time Mahomes tried to get out of the pocket and scramble around, he looked like he just could not even get out of the tackle box. He looked so lost. And even to the last drive of the game, where he almost got them out of field goal range on like a 15-yard sack. I mean, the
Mhm.
Bengals defense just really stepped up. I'll be surprised to see, or I'll be excited to see if that type of defense can translate to the Super Bowl against a Rams defense who is
Yeah.
just as good.
Yeah, what was interesting too was that the game that they played at the end of the regular season had a similar outcome where, the Chiefs, played pretty well in the first half, and then all of a sudden the second half adjustments really affected Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And to do the same thing twice to a team, I think is pretty wild because they always say that it's hard to beat a team twice in the
Mm-hmm.
same year. I don't think so, just because the Jags have done it twice on the Steelers, and it wasn't that hard for us.
Yeah,
But just
piece of
kidding, all
cake,
jokes, all jokes.
piece of cake.
But yeah, like it was pretty surprising to see. And I don't want to say like I'm not a super X's and O's guy, like overall, but the thing with the not the 49ers, the Rams, is I feel like there is more of a system that I could think of in place where I don't want to say there's not a system with the Chiefs because there obviously is, but they also rely heavily on Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelsey just making plays that no one else can. So when you talk about him running around, it's because they might be doing something that, like, okay, like I'm not able to just use my athleticism here and avoid this or just throw this up. Like where I do fear a little bit for the Bengals playing the Rams because I feel like there's just a little bit more of like an engine that just runs with McVay's
Mm-hmm.
offense and all the pieces they have. Like I know Mecole Hardman is good, and I know they had Jerick McKinnon, but I'm not really afraid of those guys. There's Cooper Cup, there's Odell Beckham now, Van Jefferson's pretty solid, but then they also got their running backs and like Matt Stafford. I'm pretty I don't know who I want to root for in the Super Bowl because on one hand, I'm like you, I want to root for the Bengals, but on the other hand, I'm like, man, Matt Stafford getting his opportunity after all these years would be great. And then
Yeah.
that defense the Rams have, I fear for Joe Burrow's life, because their offensive line hasn't been good, but that defense with Aaron Donald and everything, it's going to be a great matchup, and I'm excited to see what actually plays out.
Yeah, I mean the game plan here for the Rams has to be just pressure Joe Burrow because you already know their offensive line. The narrative is their offensive line is weak. Their offensive line is Swiss cheese. So I would almost, if I was the Rams, I would almost sacrifice a body or two on the back end of coverage to just put pressure on Burrow. He has made plays out of the pocket. We saw him escape a few sacks and a few tackles in that Chiefs game to then, obviously get a first down here and there, or just simply throw the ball away, which is obviously better than a sack as well. But if I'm the Rams, I trust my coverage on the back end. You brought Eric Weddle in, who has been a piece over the last 3 weeks in the secondary. You obviously still have Jalen Ramsey, but the heart and soul of your defense starts up front, obviously, with Aaron Donald and Von Miller, who are what I would assume would have a field day against Joe Burrow. Now, that being said, the Rams did not sack Jimmy Garoppolo once in the NFC Championship game, but that could be by way of just Garoppolo, the game plan, just get the ball out quick, running it, whatever screen passes. But I will say the Rams disrupted Jimmy G to the point where even on that last play, Aaron Donald got in his face and caused the interception that sealed the game for the Rams because the 49ers had an opportunity to march down the field, kick a game-tying field goal, score a game-winning touchdown, and the Rams just showed up and did not let that happen.
Yeah, I really I don't know. Are we getting into predictions for the Super Bowl on this right now?
We can do another Super Bowl prediction next week
Okay.
video. So those out there listening, we'll look more into it. But if you have something you want to drop, go for it.
I mean, I was just gonna say, I just I look at the Bengals and I look at their team as someone I would like to see. It's new blood in the Super Bowl. I mean, the Rams have been in the Super Bowl more recently, so it's not necessarily new for them. But new blood. But when I think of McVay and I think of people like Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, Bill Matt Stat, like I just see a lot more experience on that end. Where we're talking about like a Joe Burrow and a Zach Taylor and Jamar, like this might just be the Rams to lose, I would say. Not really, because it's the NFL, but I mean, there's some more. I don't want to say older, because really it's just Matt Stafford when I put it that way. But the Bengals might have their shots for a while. They might be in
Mm-hmm.
place to like come back here, a good couple times. So
Yeah.
as of right now, my thought process is this might be the Rams game to lose, um, rather than the Bengals to win. But it'll
Yeah.
be. I'm hoping it's as exciting as the rest of the playoffs has been.
Well, it seemed like there was a time there about 2 years ago where it felt like the Rams window was closing because they had put so much money and so much capital into building their roster that they then lost in the Super Bowl to the Patriots. They then struggled in the NFC West, and it seemed like their window was closing with Jared Goff, and they go out and get Matt Stafford, and that window opens right back up. Now, here in a few weeks or in a few years, they're going to have some salary cap issues. They're going to obviously have to get rid of some of these players. But going back to the whole Byron Leftwich talk, I love the Sean McVay strategy of let's win now. Let's just find a way to win now and get this going in the right direction. And he pretty much sacrificed 4 or 5 years of development and depth in the draft for getting dominant pieces in his
Mhm.
facilities today. And that's why it's led up to this point. Now, the Bengals, on the other hand, obviously through free agency, it is what it is, but they go out and get Joe Burrow. They go out and get Jamar Chase. Those are two of their key pieces, and obviously Joe Mixon, all of which are through the draft. So you're looking at two teams here that have kind of built their rosters completely different in their matching up in the Super Bowl. I think that just shows that in the NFL, there's not one right way to do anything. Unless you're the Jaguars, there's a bunch of ways to do things wrong. For us as fans, we can't seem to get anything right, which is extremely unfortunate. But I am excited for this matchup as much as I didn't think I would be. I think the uncertainty of what we're going to see from the Bengals kind of gets me excited because for the last 10 years, it's felt like, oh, is this team going to beat Brady? Oh, is Rodgers going to even make it to the Super Bowl? Is Manning going to win this year? Whatever it is, this seems like kind of a fresh feel Super Bowl to
Mhm.
me without any familiar faces, which I like. We have Stafford, we have Burrow, we have Cooper Kupp. Obviously Sony Michel is in there. You have Jamar Chase. There's just a lot of new pieces, which I think is kind of a good thing for the NFL, like a coming of age for the NFL, passing the torch to some of these new
Yeah.
younger teams that might explode in the next few years.
And really, no matter what happens, I feel for the Bengals, this is a great thing for them because either you win the Super Bowl, and that's awesome. And even if they lose, for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Joe Mixon, some of these younger guys to be there and know what it feels like. If they lose, then it's like, okay, now these guys have seen it. That's a team that I just see being a consistent force that they come back the next time if they don't win is like all right boys, let's do it this time, and they have less jitters, or they have less of a awe shocking moment. um I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be torn, and it won't be one of those Super Bowls where I'm going in. It'll probably be one of those Super Bowls where I have to like figure out who I'm rooting for as the game plays out. Like where I'm like, I realize, oh, I'm cheering for this
Yeah.
more than I'm cheering for
Yeah.
this, and I didn't realize it until now.
Kind of
Sometimes
like when
it's
you
like
you
that.
flip a coin and you in the air to figure out what you want to land on. It's like that kind of thing
Yeah.
with this game is as the game progresses, you'll figure out who you want to root for. I'll say as of right now, I am going for the Bengals just because I like the whole built not bought scenario for a team, just because I think that's what the Jags are going to have to do. I like seeing a team that's built their franchise from the ground up versus a team that bought it, which is ironic because I am a Dodgers fan. But I like that for the Bengals in this one. And the Bengals have been counted out for most of this playoffs. I mean, they were like 3-point favorites against the Raiders, and they're one blown whistle away being called not a touchdown from being out of the playoffs, if you really think about it, to a certain extent. They barely squeak by the Raiders. They go in as underdogs to the Titans and win there. Then they go in as underdogs to the Chiefs, one of the toughest places to play, with Joe Burrow saying SEC stadiums get louder than NFL stadiums. Chip on his shoulder. Joe wins in Kansas City, and he is now in the playoffs or in the Super Bowl, and it's just a great story. So we could ramble on about the storylines and how fun it's going to be. But Jacob, anything else from you before we call it an evening here?
No, I think we're good. I mean, now that I think about it, let's see if Joe Burrow thinks the Super Bowl is loud compared to those SEC stadiums. We'll see.
Dude, the one thing I
Um,
don't like about the Super Bowl is it seems like more of just like it seems like it's so difficult for true fans to go, which really kind of makes me upset because you're a Bengals fan your whole life, or a Rams fan, I guess, for like the last 3 years that they've been in LA. I know they were in LA long before that, but it just seems like it seems like the conference championship is the most attainable ticket for a true fan because the Super Bowl is just absurd. Like if you're the fan of the Dodgers or the Braves or whatever, you can go to a World Series game for, you're going to
yeah,
be paying a lot, but not $3,000, $5,000. It just the Super Bowl. I think they need to figure out a way. The NFL needs to figure out a way to allow the everyday fan, the your typical fan that just has season tickets in the 200 section to be able to go and watch their team play, because I don't think
yeah,
many true diehard fans get to go. I think it's a lot of obviously corporate sponsors and celebrities and all that stuff. So
exactly. And like they already have tickets out, and people already bought them up before we even know who's there.
yeah, so
So
it is a little frustrating from that aspect, but luckily for me, it doesn't seem like I'll have to worry about that for the Jags in the foreseeable future. So we'll be able to enjoy it here at Casa del Fawn Lake, something like that. So Jacob, if you're not doing anything Super Bowl Sunday, make your way
I'll
over
be
here.
there.
Make your way over here. Anyone out there listening, hit us up. Come over for the Super Bowl party. Do Super Bowl squares with us and be a part of the fun for sure. But Jacob, again, thank you for being here. Those listening, thank you for being here. Subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all platforms that you prefer for podcast. If you're on the go, if you're sleeping or not sleeping, if you're trying to go to sleep and you want to listen to us, go for it. Find us wherever you might want to. But go enjoy the rest of your week. Pro Bowl weekend this weekend. No football this Sunday as far as actual games go. But go enjoy the rest of your week and go make this world a better place, and take care.